What are we going to do today?
John, you got your glasses on.
Yeah, I got my glasses on. I'm not sure I'm going to do anything, but I've got my glasses on just in case. I'll tell you what I'm going to do today, and I'm going to tell them all when they get on here. For part of this, anyhow, I'm going to go around the screen and ask you what you're working on, and then in the course of doing that, I'm going to briefly show you what I'm working on. So if you're in your shop, get what you're working on where you can hold it up beside your ear or point your phone at it. And if you're not in your shop, you got a few minutes before we start to go and get something. It looks like it's 10 o'clock, and it looks like this is Woodturners coffee hour number 46, which I find hard to believe. We've got a bunch of stuff this morning, and as usual, just a second, let me get my notepad. Let me check who's got something they'd like to show today, if any of you alls do. Barry does. I know I'm Barry. Bill Davis has got something. Doug has something. Okay, we'll get to you, Bill. Bill D, Doug. Who else got something? Jeff Carroll.
I think I'll pass, Jim.
Okay.
John, I don't think I
thought you got some new stuff with your rolling balls. Yeah, I know.
My new stuff for what? What did you say? I'm sorry.
With the rolling ball puzzle, I thought you'd made some new versions.
I think I showed everybody on this call most of the versions. Did everybody see the mile high one or the biggest one I haven't made? Or I thought I showed that last week.
I don't think we did. So I'd like you to have that. You get that up if you can. Not right now, but like later in the call.
Okay, I'll get that. I'll get that up.
Anybody else volunteering at this before I make a speech about that?
John, I'm new. I have something I'd like to show.
Okay, Michael's there. You are new. We haven't seen you before. Where are you from, Michael?
Lancaster.
Okay.
I'm a friend of Dave Biles.
Okay, and you're not on my list, so you need to send me an email so I can send you an email.
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, and I'll put you on the mailing list for this. I mail out the link every Thursday morning or Wednesday morning, and it's been the same link all year, but I'm going to change it at March 1st, so you got to have the current email to get in.
Thank you, John.
Anybody else? Sandy, who are you?
Well, actually, I'm not really Sandy. That's my wife. I'm Jeff.
Okay.
And Doug Reeser invited me to join along with the video chat.
Very cool. And again, if you'd like to have Doug give you my email so you can get in touch with me.
Okay.
You can email editor Kelsey at Gmail. That'll work, or else John Kelsey without a Y on the end at Gmail. That'll also work, and I'll add you to our list.
Okay.
Okay. Now I'm going to make a little talk about that, about a couple of things before we go on. This is not TV. It's a participatory thing. It's free, but the price is I may call on you and ask you what you're working on. And if you're not working on anything, I might ask you what you most recently worked on. And if you can't remember what that is, I might ask you what you'd like to be working on. Because that's what has generated the material for 45 consecutive weekly coffee hours is guys holding up what they're working on in their shops and sharing it with the rest of us. And sometimes it's a problem, and sometimes it's a triumph, and sometimes it's just another damn bowl, and we chug along. So a lot of this it depends really, the success of this venture and the other coffee hours and participatory things going on around the AAW depends as much as anything on the willingness of all of the members to stick their necks out, show us your work, spotlight you on the screen. Mostly people will say nice things, and once in a while they'll say something that you really need to think about. So that's all to the good. Now with that, let's see, I'm going to make another speech later about video and club attendance. But before I even do that, can I just see a show of hands of how many of you guys are in the Lancaster area and how many are away? In the Lancaster area. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I see about half of you in the Lancaster area and about half of you not in the Lancaster area. If we were to start hybrid meetings this year, how likely are you to want to attend on Zoom, and how likely are you to want to drive to New Holland for a club meeting at the Kaufman Kitchen space? Let's see, who would drive to New Holland? Stick your hand up. Again, I get about half the room. And who would prefer to watch on Zoom, either because you're too far away or you just don't want to get it in the car, or you're worried about COVID? Okay, that's the other half of you. That's very interesting. Our club is going to have to reckon with this, with whether we buy equipment or not. We'll be discussing it at the March meeting, and I'm bringing it up now because the March meeting is next Tuesday evening, when the entertainment will be Bill Tatkowski showing his two-spout vessels. And the main business will be to try and figure out where we're going with Zoom and hybrid meetings and equipment. The club is going to need to decide, really, do we want to be a little local club that people come to, or do we want to be an internet club that has members nearby and away? And part of that is, what's our commitment to create programming?
John, something for you to consider too, as you think about having meetings in person, is how many of your members have been vaccinated?
Judy, your comment about who's been vaccinated, I think, is a very valid one. I'm feeling very positive because I actually got a vaccine scheduled for Monday morning, my wife and I, at Reading. So by the end of March, we should be okay. But I understand if we were not vaccinated, why we would still be wanting to do it remotely.
Well, let's have a little poll on that. How many of you all are getting or intend to be vaccinated this spring? Okay, that's most of you. How many of you all don't intend to be vaccinated this spring for whatever reason? I don't see anybody. I see everybody intending to be vaccinated or in queue to be vaccinated. Is that right? Yeah.
Okay, well, if anybody has any questions about the vaccines, I'm happy to be a resource. You can email me or call me or whatever.
I've had both shots.
So have I.
So have I. No problems.
I had the second last night, so I have a little fever today, but not too bad.
Again, something
We
for
had
you
the
to
first
remember.
yesterday afternoon.
I'm going to spotlight Judy for a second, and the reason I'm going to do that is Judy is an epidemiologist with particular knowledge about all this. She might speak to it and answer questions.
Oh, infectious disease docs. So the main thing to share with you is that we don't know how long the immunity is going to last. Hopefully it will be a while, but for now they're saying 3 to 5 months. They know for sure. That's if you responded to the vaccine. And of course, we don't know who's responding and who's not. So some of us older people may not get a robust immune response. There are too many unknowns. And even if you're vaccinated, I would encourage you to continue to wear masks when you get together and distance. What the vaccines will do, what we do know so far, is that the vaccines are great at keeping you from dying or getting seriously ill with COVID if you get infected. But it may not prevent some other symptoms. So, any questions?
So is it a clue that you're not that you didn't get if you didn't get a reaction to the shots? Does that mean it didn't you didn't build up the immunity?
No, they don't know that yet either.
Okay.
I mean, I read about this. This is my bread and butter, reading about this every day. And I have a newsletter with what I learned, but it is a very liberal newsletter. So some of you may not like it unless you skip over the politics part. But I'm happy to answer any questions for anybody.
I'll post a link to Judy's newsletter in the follow-up tomorrow.
I'm thrilled that you guys are getting the vaccine. That's wonderful. That's what we need, because as we get herd immunity, then you won't have to worry about it.
Judy, it's Doug Reeser here. Even if the vaccine comes along for our club meetings, we would still expect people to wear masks and stuff like that. Or is there some point? I mean, if everybody in the room is vaccinated, is there a point in everybody wearing a mask?
Yes, because for 2 reasons, Doug. One is that we don't know how long immunity is going to last. The other is that the vaccines are terrific. They are better than expected. Like 94, 95% of people are developing immunity to the vaccines. But that still means that you don't know who the 5% that haven't responded are. And that's why it's important to still wear masks and distance.
And at what point in time, or how long will it be before you think that we will be in a position to be mask free? At least a year, 2
Yeah.
years,
At least,
forever?
no, not forever, at least a year. And they're developing newer and better vaccines all the time, and we're learning more. We may learn in a few months. We'll know better how long the immunity is lasting. Maybe they'll have better tests to tell us who has developed a good immune response. I mean,
Thank you.
It's remarkable that they have learned this much this quickly. So.
Judy, this is Jim Bowman. The other question is, which I don't think science has answered, is whether even those who've been vaccinated could be transporting and infecting others with the COVID.
Again, that is something that is an intense area of study now, and they don't know. I just saw today that there is some data from Israel that's saying that it reduces transmission, but not that it eliminates transmission. So I'm happy to give anybody updates, or as I say, if you look at the newsletter, which comes out usually on Thursdays and Sundays, it has whatever I've learned that week.
Israel's been an interesting study, hasn't it? I think it's almost got its whole population vaccinated, doesn't it?
Not quite, but they're far ahead of any other country. Well, thank you. Sorry to interrupt your regular programming.
No, I appreciate this very much, Judy.
That's helpful. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you very much. And as I say, I'll put your info in the follow-up so that anybody who wants to get directly in touch with you can do that.
Sure. Happy to help.
Thank you.
John?
Yes.
You talked about hybrid meetings earlier on.
Now, do you
meaning that-
guys usually, I got a question. Before the pandemic,
Okay.
before the pandemic, I was wearing a dust mask when I was turning, especially for spalted woods. And now I wear it all the time religiously, just like my face mask. And I think after the pandemic, I think while I'm turning, I still will wear my dust mask as well as my face shield, just to protect myself. And I think if you're at, a few people are turning together, it's a good idea just for the dust to be wearing it. What's your opinion on that?
Yes, and now they're recommending double masking as being more protective than a single mask.
Yes.
So putting a simple cloth mask so that it holds your dust mask more tightly to your face.
I've been using the Dust Be Gone mask, and I've been happy with it.
Kai has his hand up.
Yes, I'm going to Kai next. Kai began. Okay, it's yours now, Kai.
Okay. I just wanted to ask, you talked about hybrid meetings earlier on, hybrid club meetings. That's your monthly club meeting. What about the morning coffee hour? Will you keep that on as it is at the moment, or are you thinking about changes here as well?
No, I'm thinking of keeping the morning coffee hour going as long as you guys are interested and I'm interested. If all of us lose interest, we'll stop it. But as long as there's continued interest at the level that there is, I'm intending to keep it going.
I was gonna say, how many people on the meeting this morning want to continue even if afterwards, despite COVID? I mean, to me, I think this is just a good supplemental to my own wood turning experience, regardless of whether we had social distancing or not.
That's how I feel. I feel it's something we've discovered that we can carry on with. I mean, I don't see how else I would be talking to Ernie and Kai and Larry all on the same call. It's amazing to me. Could I see those hands? My screen was shifting when you were showing hands. How many would like to carry on with this? Nothing to do with COVID, after COVID. It seems to me it's most of, I think I see, in fact, everyone. And on that note, you may invite your friends as well, but to get them in touch with me directly so they get the link directly from me rather than passed on to you, or you risk giving them the wrong link. And how's my sound now, Jim?
Much better.
I'll tell you why. I had two other devices camped on the same Wi-Fi because I had intended to do a little multi-camera fool around. And I now see that 3 cameras overloads my Wi-Fi. So the only practical way to have cameras in a call this size is to plug them in on the HDMI port. Wi-Fi doesn't cut it.
Absolutely, especially with video.
Yeah. Well, that's a good learning to have. That informs where we'll need to go with the club. And without, I don't want to take up much more of the meeting on this. I might come back to it later in the call. What I'd like to do now is go to Barry, who's going to do a follow-up on his threading jig. I'm going to spotlight Barry.
You all have this image on your screen?
I see it.
Yeah.
Yes. Larger.
Okay, I guess the biggest change is from what I did before. Before, the whole apparatus was mounted directly on the carriage. Now, I got one of these box turning and platform, if you will, jigs from Robust. I'm sorry, not jig, tool rest. And so I based the new version on, it just mounts onto that tool rest, and that provides easy motion using the banjo, left, right, in and out for macro motion. So okay, the tool rest is positioned all the way down, so there's no fiddling around with finding the center. This is kind of an intermediate piece right here that slides on over the tool rest and then has a knob on the bottom to lock it onto the tool rest or to unlock it so you can do micro adjustments. And then the actual apparatus just saddles on there and is free to move maybe 3/8 of an inch in and out.
Nice nuts.
Yeah, I did away with the need for a wrench. This is the, I filmed it out of order. This is the lid for the box, but I believe you should turn the base of the box first so you can get a diameter to base your female thread diameter on. So that's the assembly full up.
Now, is that the lid or the base?
That's the lid.
And you're cutting the female thread in the lid.
Correct.
How do you keep this thing aligned with the axis of the lathe?
Here's an interesting thing that I thought about is that it does not have to be aligned. If it's just visually aligned, that's good enough. It could actually be off by 15 degrees, and it would affect the form of the thread, but it would not affect the depth or concentricity of the thread. You're only making contact at one point, and that point is advancing along the radius. And so it doesn't really matter if you're exactly aligned. Now, for a good 60-degree thread form, you want to have it as close to square as you can, but it's not critical. You don't have to put a square on it or anything like that.
That amazes me.
So I'm just positioning it by eye, and I moved it using the banjo until, as you can see, my cutter just barely rubs on the inside of the wood. You just pause it here in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. You can see that red piece of 1/16 inch plywood between the block and the Allen screw that limits travel. That's my 1/16 shim. That's pretty much exactly how much you move it to cut a full depth thread. I have learned that on internal threads, you can easily cut the full depth in one pass. On external thread, you got to do it in 2 passes, and so that piece of shim is just like a guide, but not an absolute limit.
Oh, Barry, that 16th inch shim, that's your depth of cut of your thread?
Yes, it's a 16th inch shim. The thread for for 8 thread per inch, like a 60% engagement, 50% engagement, it would be about a 1/16. It actually calculates out to like 0.062, where you're around there, about a 16th. And so that shim, that change in diameter or change in radius is what you need to get a full depth foreign wood contact.
Okay.
I think that's a very clever way of doing it too. And this is, you know, there's a lot to learn in how Barry does jigs. Having the platform land at the right height automatically is a very good move. And having setting the cutter so it just touches the wood with a 16th shim in and then pulling the shim out is a terrific way to set the depth of cut. I mean, who knew? These are very clever.
Yeah.
Can you see here? I'm like ready to turn. Optically, it appears the cutter is already in there. It is not. It's outside of it by about 2 turns. And I pull the shim out. And then move it over 1/16 of an inch and tighten it. And the chatter that you're seeing on the screen, I apologize, but I mounted my camera directly on the head of the lathe. And so at 3,000 RPM, I'm getting some vibration back through the camera.
I learned that the hard way too.
Yeah. This wood, by the way, is popcorn bean, which is, as far as I know, the densest wood native to North America. Extremely dense. I had a couple of pieces of it that I was using to make mallets and stuff like that. It's like 70 pounds per cubic foot.
You find that you,
I'm sorry?
you find that you still have to put your hand on the chuck to keep it steady?
Yeah, the main thing is don't exert any sideways force with either of your hands.
Yeah.
You just try and keep a pure rotary motion.
Hard to hear him over the noise of the machine. So hold the questions to the button and throw them at him.
We'll go ahead and lower them. I'm sorry. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, Jim, what was that question again? We didn't hear it.
What was the question?
Yeah, what was the question and what was the answer?
Was it Mike that asked the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I asked if he had to keep his hand on the chuck to keep it steady, because I know with mine, it gets a little bit of chatter sometimes. If you don't have your hand on the chuck, it jumps around.
Yeah, well, it actually, I think it probably cuts more consistently when I use my my larger chuck. I've got a Vic 120 that's probably about 12 pounds in the chuck itself, and so it dampens out everything.
Yeah.
But I haven't found chatter to really be a problem as long as you run. Here I'm running 3,000 RPM, which is about the upper limit on my lathe.
Okay.
As long as you run at a high RPM and don't get pulling on any part of the apparatus, and you just like try to use a pure rotary motion.
Right.
It worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
And I'm coming back out here. And you can see this is all single pass. And again, the jumping around is the vibration of the lathe. It runs very smooth and it's not frightening or chattering.
What's the cutter again that you use, Barry?
What's the cutter what?
What is the cutter?
The cutter is a 6-tooth, 60-degree angle carbide cutter that that an American-made version of it is, there may be several, but a company called Moon, M-O-O-N, makes an American version. John Kelsey has one. It has, I think, maybe 8 teeth, but it is not carbide. This I found at AliExpress, Alibaba over in China. And this is a 6-tooth carbide, and you can buy it in 60-degree or 90-degree. And of course, for forming threads, you want 60-degree.
Right.
And it was, I think, about a year ago. I think it was about either $14 or $18, whereas the Moon item in America here is, I think, like $44.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have trouble getting on now.
Okay, so then going back into order, first of all, this is my larger chuck. And you might notice here I have what I'm about to cut prepared, as I described last time, where there's about a 1/8 longitudinally, about 1/8 where it's been turned down so that I'm not cutting threads all the way out to the rim. And then at the root of the thread, it's been turned down to slightly below the minor diameter. And with about 1/8 of an inch gap, because the cutter, the face of the cutter will run up against your wood if you try to cut down too far.
Right.
It's not a big deal if you do. You just have to retrim the appearance on the box to get rid of the machine marks. And the biggest caution on doing the male threads is trying to climb. You know, last time I showed it, I cut from the root out, and it just presents some issues that it's easier for me to restrain the motion here, so it doesn't start spinning itself because of the direction cut. And here I'm cutting only half of the depth. You see, you can run it right down to where it just about starts to rub on the object.
Do you have trouble re-indexing it for that second cut?
No. And here's let me say, I bought some very thin cyanoacrylate, CA adhesive. This hop-horn beam is kind of like oak and ash and such. It's very ring porous. And I found that if you use that thin CA, it fills those pores. And so it becomes both a nice dense wood and no open pores, and it turns quite nicely then. This is after the first turn. I applied CA to all the threads, let it soak in, and sprayed it with the accelerator to make sure I had I didn't want to have my cutter get all gummed up. And you can see it's forming the last part of a V thread. Sorry about that. And all you really need is like one full turn of threads. I left about 1.5 on this. When it comes off the cutter with a regular, with an 1/8 inch carpenter's chisel, I cut away the partial thread, like you can see here where, okay, right there, it just starts to pick up on the fringy partial thread where it's just entering. And so I clean all that up back to where I have full thread, so it inserts and starts easier and doesn't break off as easily.
That's one hell of a jig.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And then,
Barry, but I do have a question for you. How do you control the alignment of the grain in the wood?
Okay, I'm going to turn my volume up. I have no more noises. I'm sorry, what was the question?
When you assemble it, how do you control the grain of the wood? The number of, when you tighten the lid down?
I'm sorry, I really
Question, Barry, is you're going to come to it and showing us these slides. How do you trim so the grain of the wood lines up?
Oh, I mount the bow or the object on a Bosch type jig that the holding fixture one that I made, and just having it horizontal, I just go ahead and run a chisel against the thread and just shave it down to the root as best I can. And you can kind of see here it.
So you just take thread off to make that work.
Right. You decide where to start it. You can kind of see here. I'm hoping it zoomed up on your screen. I have it zoomed up on mine here.
Yeah, it's perfect. I'd like to see it with the lid screwed on as well. That would help us.
Yeah, and on this picture here on the right-hand side, at the top of the male thread, you can see where the thread starts.
Yes.
And goes on down then. And so it's got 1.5 turns. I don't bother cleaning up the female threads except for after it's all been done, I run a parting tool back inside, maybe an 1/8 inch deep, just to get rid of any threads that might lead to damage in the future. You can see there's a partial thread at the bottom of the female. And then this is the
there you
go. That dark band was a pleasant surprise. I didn't know that was going to show up in there, but it turned out quite nice. And unfortunately, you can see kind of a dent in the lid partway up from the top ring. I was trying to turn the top of the lid on a rejig. I just had it with some tape on it in the chuck, and cutting that end grain at one point, it had too much force and it pulled it out of the chuck and it struck the floor, and resulting in that dent, which I didn't notice until the picture was taken.
Yeah.
Kai, your hands up.
Yeah, Barry, just one question. Your threads look very crisp. You said you stabilized them with super glue. Is that right? Or you stabilized the wood with super glue before you did the thread. Is that right?
I think that's pretty much all a function of the porosity and density of the wood. I have turned Cocobolo, and it came out very, very neat. You could do the full depth cut in one pass, and it had almost no tear out. It came out with a nice crisp line. Now this I'm putting on. I really like the idea of putting on the CA, hardening it, and then doing a final pass. It makes it so that when you apply wax and such, it just goes on much nicer and you don't get wax buildup. Just makes it very, let me exit this here.
Okay, so you use the CA glue only for the final pass. So first you do it without the CA, and then you harden the threads with the CA glue, and then you do a final pass over that. Is that right?
I'm sorry, let me get back to, I'm trying to end my.
Your screen share is ended. You're good. We're back to gallery view.
Okay.
Okay. So the question again, if I understood you right, you do the you produce the threads first, then you put CA glue on them to harden them if it's necessary, depending on the wood, and then you do a final pass to get the crisp kind of surface that you showed us. Is that the process?
Right. The main caution is do not remove it from the chuck and do not move the jig on the lathe longitudinally. As long as all motion occurs by turning the hand wheel, so you're advancing or retreating it, you return to the same position. Otherwise, you're going to run the risk of not getting reseated exactly in the V of the thread, and you're buggering everything up. So you have to apply the glue right at the lathe, or if you're going to take it off, make sure you have some kind of accurate markings for how to put it back on.
Mm-hmm. Barry, have you tried hardening the wood first and then doing the whole threading process, or doesn't the super glue penetrate deep enough, or the CA glue deep enough into the wood for that? So the question is, can you kind of stabilize the wood first and then start the threading? Or your way, as you described it, is you do the threading first, then stabilize it with super glue, and then do a final pass. Is it possible to kind of stabilize the wood first and then do the threading process afterwards?
Yeah, I would say if it's ring porous wood, you could put the.
Yeah. Okay, I can see.
This is
yeah.
a surely ring porous. You could put the glue on, just holding it upright. Well, capillary action will take the glue in no matter how you hold it, but to avoid a CA mess all over it, you just put CA around the top and keep on replenishing it until it won't absorb anymore. And it will go down like 1/4 of an inch deep or so, but I just think it's neatly effective to go ahead and put it on the threads themselves. After you cut part way down, it's easier to get the penetration. And same with the lid.
Does the super glue or the CA glue dull the cutter quickly? Because when I used hoist tools for thread chasing, hand thread chasing, I made the experience that they dull really quickly when they get into contact with CA glue.
No, I think as long as you use the accelerator and make sure it's hardened, I found no problem with the CA glue.
Okay.
Wiping off excess can be a problem. It starts to, on these ring porous woods, it's starting to set off all on its own. With the cloth rag, I burned my fingertip twice yesterday. With it went through like 3 layers of microfiber, made the microfiber adhere, and made my finger adhere to the microfiber, so I couldn't get away from the heat.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks a lot for the comprehensive answer.
Yeah, that's a terrific jig. Very good jig. Anybody else with questions on that?
Barry, I think you've just made something that all old guys need, and that's a good toenail trimmer. I think if you could figure out a way to put your big toe on there, you could regulate it and trim the toes very nicely.
I'll take it under advisement, Jim.
Mike Lebo, can you hear me?
Yes.
Is your threading jig something you built or bought?
No, I built it.
Can you show it to us next week?
Yeah.
That would be great. Does anybody else have a threading jig that they've devised that they'd like to show? Let's explore this a bit. Okay, we'll see Mike's next week. Anything else for Barry? And if not, we'll move on. Thank you, Barry.
You're
Ray,
welcome.
What do you got? Ray Simmons.
Okay, I'm just going to just share a picture. Got a large picture, John?
It's large now.
Okay, Tormac started promoting diamond wheels for their sharpening setup. And I went to the diamond wheel, changed from the regular to diamond wheel, especially because of SKEWs, to get away from the concave sharpening aspect. But what I found is when I went to the diamond wheel, when I go to reshape the SKEW, some of the new metals are extremely hard. And even though the diamond wheel will do it, but when it's a fine grit, it takes forever. So they have an adapter setup that you can take over to a regular grinder to pre-grind. And you don't need the Tormac. This is a setup you can put on your regular grinder if you're using CBN wheels. So what I do now is I pre-grind the SKEWs, but I needed this jig to be able to grind on the side of the wheel. So I'll pre-grind on the Tormac CBN at 360, then take it over on the Tormac at 600 and finish
Well,
it.
help us out here. How does this work? I don't see how you use this.
Okay, the flat surface here is what I want to use. So this bar normally is horizontal. Well, Tormac come up with this adapter that holds that bar now vertical. So my jig for the SKEW uses this as a reference point. It's straight up and down in reference to the wheel.
So I could make a straight up and down fence on my regular platform because I got a flat side on a CBN wheel too.
Correct. That would do the same thing. And so what they do is this rotates and you can move this in and out. So it really works because when I go from here, and also a lot of times when you get the tools from the vendors, they're not ground, they're ground close, but you know, they're banging those things out. They're not precise. So I can set up, just put this set up, but it comes out, this base is like what the Tormac has. Put this set up, pre-grind, and then go over and finish it on the diamond wheel. And it's really works well.
What'd that cost you, Ray?
Well, this setup here, probably by the time you get the base in this, is a couple $100.
And the diamond wheel?
Oh, the diamond wheel is about $300.
Questions for Ray?
But this could be set up without the diamond wheel. And if you have a CBN setup, you can set up all the Tormac accessories on your CBN wheel. So that's a thought. You talk about repeatability. You can have all the Tormac setup repeatability and use a CBN wheel. So a lot of guys have this setup now. So, you know, it's like it would be an upgrade.
I'm thinking I can very quickly put a vertical fence on my regular platform on my CBN wheel and get I think that's a good idea. I never thought of it before because I'm always wrestling to find that vertical point by eye.
Yeah, and then now the difference is the only thing you have to watch is when you do it, you have to get you to flat angle. The difference is the angle of the SKEW. When you set that up in the jig, I draw a line across and do a 90-degree angle and set the edge of the SKEW to that and put that in the jig. So that angle is perpendicular to this or parallel to this face right here. So that's the only thing you need to watch for. You're going to have it flat, but you're going to have to just, you know, set that SKEW angle.
Okay.
But it works extremely well, and it's very repeatable. So that's the key.
Any other questions for Ray?
I would like to see a video. See either a video or a live feed of Ray using this thing. I don't fully understand what the.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
What the middle part is.
Would you be able to put that together for us, Ray, for next week?
I'll see what I can do because it's not together now.
Well, I mean, for next time you have it together.
Yeah, it went from here. You know, I did the SKEWs, and it went from here over to the Tormac, so everything was taken apart. Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
Next time you have it together, I wouldn't mind seeing more pictures of it in action. I think that would answer people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
Questions. Thank you, Ray.
By the way, somebody asked about the price of diamond wheels. I don't have any of the CBN wheels, and I've been looking on Amazon. They range from $100 to $135 and up. But and I don't know about the quality differences, but it seems that the price of the CBN wheels is dropping.
Yeah, we've all seen that.
You're talking about two different things, right? Diamond wheels and CBN. You're not interchanging the name.
I thought that the CBN wheels were diamond wheels.
They're not. No, Ray is going more exotic. Yeah, and the difference is you can sharpen carbide on diamond. You can't sharpen carbide on CBN.
Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And
CBN means cubic boron nitride.
And Ray is into very exotic metals and tooling.
I see. So diamond will be definitely different. Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Sure.
Yeah, but don't tell your wife that you put the diamond on a wheel in the shop instead of on her finger.
You just told her.
Bill Davis, what do you got?
Me and Kathy were making some birdhouses over the weekend. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm looking looking for where you are so I can spotlight you. There you are. I'm going to put the spotlight on you.
So we found some what I thought was crappy wood, but it turned out it's pretty nice. It's got some nice spalding in it, and I'm still doing the burn or turn. So I've been finding wood in the woodshed, and God, I found a piece of 2x4 that does such a nice job, you know, looking like this.
Yeah,
this is the first. That's kind of the closest I've gotten to anything that looks almost the same on my lathe. So then I started with it's actually in the same. I got this spalting from the bottom where the bird is, and I tried, and this is really punky wood that was next to it in that same log, and I couldn't get it to turn for nothing. It's so light. There's nothing to it. So I figured I'd make some birdhouse. You know, the main part of the birdhouse out of another piece that was the same thing. This turns great. Use a SKEW on it, and it turns this wood into something that I can use for a birdhouse. So I'm going to be doing that this week.
You would get somewhere with the flat one with a jam chuck if you supported it. If you made a jam chuck that the back of that plugged into and supported the wood, you could then turn the front.
This piece?
Yeah, but you'd have to make a jam chuck full circle.
I don't know if you can see the crap in it.
No, you can't. It's all white.
Yeah, it's all punky, you know. Yeah. I call it
maybe you couldn't turn it then. You might have to sand it.
Yeah. So I was just playing with that. I started a piece that was 14 inches round. I was going to make a platter out of it, and there was too much of this in the middle of it, and I couldn't do it. So I cut it all up, and I'll make some birdhouses out of it.
Bill, Judy Stone wants to know where you got the little birds. Did you make them?
No, they were. I don't know either. I think these might have come from AC Moore. We have that around here.
Yeah, that would be right. You could get stuff like that there.
Online, you can get better ones. I don't really like this one too much, but you know, it does the trick.
Okay.
And there are smaller ones that look a lot better, I think. I made quite a few birdhouses, so I need to look for some more because I got 2 more left. So
what wood is that? Do you have any idea what that wood is that came out of the fire pit?
The punky stuff was maple.
No, the birdhouses.
The top was cherry, and it was so nice because I didn't have to sand any of it on the top. And then using the SKEW on the bottom, there wasn't much sanding on that. I don't know if that's maple or not, but it's just a piece of
light colored wood,
spalted wood that I had out back.
Okay.
You said it was crappy wood. I thought maybe you meant it was crab apple wood. No, I'm just kidding.
No. It looked really bad. I'm like, usually I just throw it in the fire, but you know, I figure why do that?
Thank you, Bill. Jeff Carroll, what do you got? Is Jeff there still? Where is he? There he is. Okay, I got to spotlight you.
We did a live edge bow this weekend. It's really interesting. When I turned it, it was green wood, but it was pretty much a round piece of wood. I dried it in the microwave, and it has warped and twisted, but it's still interesting.
How long did you put it in the microwave? What was the cycle you used?
I turn it on for 10 seconds and then let the wood completely cool off, turn it on for 10 seconds. Kept doing that for about 10, 15 times. And it's pretty dry now, but it changed the shape dramatically, but.
I tried to accelerate that one time with a thin goblet and caught fire.
Yeah. It gets pretty warm. I mean, even with 10 seconds, you don't want to leave it much longer. It dries it out pretty quick. But
Jeff, is that last one holly?
The what?
Was that last piece holly?
No, actually, it's magnolia.
Okay. Okay.
If you leave your microwave at lower power, it works better. You have to stretch the time a little. I do it at like 3 or 5.
Okay, I'll try that next time.
Yeah, high is too fast to dry wood.
Yeah. Here's one that I just finished. It's just a couple of pieces of maple laminated together, but that turned out pretty good.
What's the finish, Jeff?
It's the general finish, general bowl finish.
Salad bowl?
Right.
It looks buffed.
No, that's just the finish.
Okay. Any other questions for Jeff? Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Michael Zare, you wanted to show us something. I'm going to put the spotlight on you.
Okay.
If you turn your phone sideways, we might get a bigger picture.
Okay. I'm fairly new to wood turning, so it's a bit intimidating to be in the presence of so many masters. But my latest project was this yarn ball winder. And most of the elements were turned on the lathe.
Did
It makes it real nice.
Did you have a pattern for that, or did you figure it out?
A friend of mine made one, and I took his idea and made some modifications to it. But it as this goes around, the rubber rides on this pivot point, and it rotates this about 8 degrees, so it's constantly changing the shape of the ball to a real nice ball.
Show us the action again, please.
Sure.
What's the 3 silver coins on the one side?
Those are counterweights, so that it's perfectly balanced over the center point.
That
Do you have
is
a
very
draw-
cool.
Do you have a drawing of that?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Is that an idler in there between the 2 pulleys?
It's a tension pulley, so it's adjustable.
So it moves back and forth to put tension on the belt.
Exactly right. Yes.
Could you take some still pictures of that from various angles so we can see the detail a bit better?
Sure.
Keep it from tangling when you try to take it off and to use it.
The yarn just slides right up, and then this centerpiece right here is where where you start the yarn from the beginning, so it slides off real nice.
And you pull the yarn out of the center of the ball.
Exactly right. Yes.
That is a lovely gizmo. If you do take still pictures and send them to me, I'll put them in the follow-up email.
And is that a sewing machine belt, or where'd you get the little rubber belt?
I bought 3/16" O-ring material from Granger, I think it was, and then I spliced it and glue it together with CA glue.
And that's a little tensioner you have between the handle and the device?
Yes.
There's a commercial version that's very. You should run it so you can see it.
I'm sorry?
Everybody's talking at once. Ernie, you got the floor. Go for it, Ernie.
There's a commercial version of that that's not done nearly as nicely as that one is, but Susan sells them to her students, and they're not cheap. So it would be worth building one yourself. So I think this is great.
That's a very
Thank
cool
you.
project. Okay, I'm going to remove the spotlight. I'm going to try and get back to gallery view here. I had somebody else wanted to show us something. We got a couple minutes left. Who was it? Another Jeff?
I can show you 2 boxes.
Who's that?
Mike Lebo.
Yeah, do.
This is one that I just turned. It's from an oak barrel.
Does that opening get bigger, or is it just is it the same size as the lid?
No, it stays at one size.
Okay.
I just put those rings on there for something to sell. That's one I showed you before.
I like that one.
That's a bowl that I did. I'm trying to find the one I just turned.
You have the real McCoy, you can hold it up.
Yeah, I got that right here.
Okay, so let's end your share. There you go.
This is Osage orange. And it's a box. Just something I was messing around with.
What'd you cut the beads with?
A beading tool.
Did you clean them up with a SKEW or the whole thing with the beading tool?
Whole thing with a beading tool. I actually made a beading tool too.
You got
with
that?
a larger bead than that one.
I was curious about knowing how to make a beading tool. Have you got the beading tool there?
No, I'm upstairs. It's down in my shop.
Okay.
Maybe next time.
Next time, bring it along. I would like very much to see a beading tool that somebody made in the shop, because I tried to make one and it didn't work out so well.
I got some 3/8 inch by 3/8 inch by 8 inch long high-speed steel. Cut it ground it on an angle, and then I just took a Dremel tool and burned a hole in. I'll show it to you next time.
Okay. Bruce Lamb, you're visiting. Can you turn your mic on and tell us where you're from?
Sure, I'm the new president of the Baltimore area Turners, and we've been experimenting with some forums kind of like this and trying to understand what works and what doesn't work. I love your opening question of what are you working on, which, you know, we don't really try that. We try to do some topics in advance, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. So this is really helpful to me. Thanks for including me.
Okay, your mic is pretty bad. I think you might need to look into why it has a buzz in it. I'll tell you too, the secret of this coffee hour, we've been doing this for 46 sessions now. We started out doing coffee hour simply to teach our members how to use Zoom. That was the whole point. And then we started saying, okay, well, what are we going to do? So we started showing stuff. And I usually check in with a few guys to see if they've got something like a little video or a slideshow. And then everything just comes along. So it has turned into self-generating content, for members, by members, 100% about wood turning, as you've seen. And I think it's just a great thing.
Hey, John, take the spotlight off of Mike.
Okay. I didn't realize it was still on, Mike.
John?
Yeah.
Yesterday, I made myself a beading tool. You asked to show it. I took an Allen key.
Mike Lebo's still on spotlight.
I just took him
now.
All right.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's it, Doug.
I took a Allen key and put it on the grinder.
Hold it closer to you. I mean,
Sorry?
you're more in line with your face.
There, how's that? Is that better?
Good.
So I put it in line. I took an Allen key and ground it off with a V shape on the grinder.
Yeah.
And then I took my chainsaw file and filed a notch in it. It's harder than rock. You can't drill it, but that's I'm still perfecting it a little bit to make the ends right. But this worked. I mean, it's a little Allen key, but when you put it down and hold it in an angle like this, it does perfectly good. I didn't have any problems holding it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, I'm going to remove the spotlight again. I appreciate that, Doug. I'm still wrestling here with my, yeah. Okay. We're close on the hour. If anybody's got a burning desire to say something, now's your moment before I end the meeting for all.
John,
Yeah.
can I do a spotlight for just a moment?
Yeah.
This
Who's
is a
that?
teaser for next week.
Who's talking? Oh, Randy. Yeah, sure.
Randy Smith.
Yep. Gotcha. Are you going to share or are you going to hold it up?
Yeah. No, I'm going to share.
Okay. You got it.
This is a device, and you'll see how it works next week.
Okay. Randy's going to show us some of the tools involved in pen turning and jigs, and we're more interested in what everybody does, but we're also equally interested in how you hold the work and how you get at the work so that we can apply that to whatever it is that we're making. I'm looking back for gallery view. Okay. And with that, you guys, thank you very much for another very interesting Woodturners coffee hour, and we'll see you all next Thursday morning at 10 o'clock.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
invitation.
Thank you.
Friends.